on today's episode, today I'm going to be sharing with you guys why Nigerian doctors are able to thrive in any healthcare system at all in the world. Now, this was not just something I just came by. Over the last few months, I actually found myself in a place where, I doubted myself. I doubted my clinical experience. Sometimes I felt inadequate, my competency at some point. It was more like I was losing my confidence, but then I was actually able to, get myself back. And, thankfully, I have been able to get myself to a point where I've been able to get my confidence back to a significant extent, and I am still working on it because, he has to be top notch. He has to get to a point where, nothing at all makes me, doubt my abilities, in terms of my clinical practice. And one of the things that was very helpful to me is I had a lot of reflections, and one of the things that came up in the course of that reflection was reminding myself of the quality of medical education I had. I felt like I needed to share with people really that why exactly a Nigerian doctor is able to thrive in any healthcare system. And this is definitely not an assumption. If you actually check Google is going to give you a list of Nigerian-trained doctors who are doing amazing stuff, all around the world. And the list is not ending because many more will still break, grounds, especially in the medical field. And I doubt if there is any healthcare system at all where you will not find Nigerian doctors. Okay, so guys, let's just jump right into it because I don't want to digress a lot. So let's just get into the main gist of this video. Hello, my name is Blessing and I'm a doctor currently practicing in the UK. And of course, I am a Nigerian-trained doctor. And here on this channel, I talk all about medicine. I talk about my journey as an IMG doctor here in the UK, and I also share my journey as a trainee here in the UK. So feel free to actually join the community, become a part of us, and let us all grow together. So let's just jump right into the main crux of today's video. Okay, so to start with, I think I want to start with the selection process. So the selection process to actually get into medical training in Nigeria is very strict, like it's crazy. You have to be very excellent. You have to really score very high in your exams. I mean, the exams that actually qualify you to get into the a university. So you have to score very high. At the end of the day, most of the guys you actually find, especially in Nigerian public universities, most of the guys that you actually find in a typical medical class are like the high flyers. The guys that represent a country in international competitions. Guys that top various national competitions, guys that top various exams, like the high flyer guys, like the very smart guys. So those are the quality of people you find in a typical medical class in a typical Nigerian public universities. Now, I am emphasizing all of this. I trained in a public Nigerian university, and so I understand how things were, and I feel like that should probably be the standard for other schools in that category. And I am really talking about that because that is really what I know so much about. So you have to be very smart, you have to be very intelligent, especially in your sciences, to actually be able to get into medicine training. It is designed in such a way that if you're not academically committed and intelligent, if you're not smart, you might eventually not be able to progress with medical education because especially for the preclinical part of the training, we have to write a lot of exams, do a lot of tests. There's so much actually with it's quite tedious, and so some persons eventually drop off along the way. They are not able to continue with their contemporaries because maybe they just didn't pass the exams, or maybe they were struggling, or for any reason at all. So in a way, the system actually weeds off, and it's more like it encourages and promotes hard work. So you have to be on top of your game for you to be able to get through the preclinicals and get into the clinical school. Now, eventually, when you get into the clinical side of, the training, it's even more tedious because this time around, it is usually assumed that at that level, there is a higher chance that you eventually become a doctor. And so there's a lot of attention on you. Yes, so there is no room for mediocrity. There is no room for for a person to be unserious, because the clinical aspect of the training is quite tedious. From the point you enter the clinical school, you're going to be treated like a doctor. So you have to attend all the ward rounds, you have to participate in every activity that the unit you're rotating through is involved in. If there's a ground round, if there's a ward round, if they are going to any other unit to review a patient, and another thing is every patient in the unit is allocated to medical students. So let's say we're like in a group of 10 students and there are like 30 patients in that unit. So each of us is actually going to get 3 patients allocated to us. Now these 3 patients, you're going to take your time, you're going to collect these patients, know every detail about these patients, and you're going to present these patients on ward rounds. You're going to be asked questions about their management. So you have to keep yourself up to date with everything that is going on with that patient. You also have to read about that clinical condition, because you can't be asked any question about it and you're expected to know. So it's usually like that, and they drill you so much. Like, I mean, there is no mercy at all. So yeah, it's usually like a very tedious process, because you're treated like, oh, you're going to become a doctor very soon, so get used to how we roll here. So that is how it goes, and you do that for another 3 years. And I know that in some parts of the world, medicine is usually for like 5 years thereabout, but then in Nigeria it's actually at least 6 years. For some persons it's actually way much more than 6 years. For example, I think I did mine for almost 7 years, and that's because of the strike. Medical training is quite tedious. I remember at some point I just had to give up on trying to be available for family events, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to be available for family events. But the next part of it is the fact that training as a doctor in Nigeria is quite tedious, and even after you eventually become a doctor, practicing in Nigeria is quite tedious. And so because the population is large, you definitely have a lot of patients to attend to, a lot of patients in your care. You have to be up and doing in whatever setting at all. You just always have a lot of jobs to do, especially in like the public hospitals. Oh my god, it's crazy. And so if you have been able to cope with that level of stress, and you're still able to deliver, and still being exposed to that level of pressure from patients, from their relatives, not having enough resources and a whole lot of things, and yet you're still able to make you're still able to put everything you have, everything that is available to you, make the best of it, in order to give the best of care to your patient. And I feel like when you eventually find yourself in a system where things are maybe a bit more organized, and where things are a bit much more available, then it's easier for you to even do much more better. So I actually think that the training is one that actually teaches you how to be able to cope under pressure, how to be able to deal with difficult situation. Another point is the fact that, of course, in Nigeria, it's a developing country. We don't have like the best of medical facilities. We don't have like the latest medical equipment. We don't have the latest machines for investigations or tests, and so we make do with the minimal resources that are available to us. So how it happens is that during the course of your training, because we don't have access to all the modern medical facilities, there tends to be a lot of emphasis on developing your clinical acumen. So history is usually something that is a very important part of the training. As a Nigerian doctor, you must be able to take detailed history, such that by the time you are done with that encounter with a patient, you can already have some differentials, and based on those differentials, like you're almost very close to the diagnosis of that patient. And this is another thing is the fact that, because patients also have to pay out of pocket, you want your investigations to be focused. So you want to have an idea of, these are my differentials, these are the investigations that they are really, really very important, very essential for me to reach a diagnosis and for me to be able to treat this patient. Even sometimes you actually have to prioritize what is most important, which of these investigations is most beneficial to this patient, and that is how you order your investigations. And that actually puts you in a position to develop your clinical acumen. And a lot of times, by the time you practice for a little while, it actually becomes very sharp, such that you're able to pick up a lot of diagnoses even more quickly. So like in some countries where there's a lot of advanced technology, they can do as many investigations as is necessary. When you now find yourself in a system where facilities are more, like where you have access to more advanced facilities, so just imagine what you can do. You would definitely do much more better. One of the reasons why I also feel like Nigerian doctors are able to really cope in various healthcare system is just that the entire process shapes you to actually be this resilient person. But when they find themselves in a system where things are even a bit more organized, these are the guys that, you know, they always show up for work. They don't call in sick a lot. And these are the guys that they don't usually find excuses to be absent from work. These guys are usually very dedicated. They are usually very committed, and so you tend to find that they're usually available. They do the work, you know, they really deliver. They are usually very helpful within the team. I'm sure that maybe some persons, when they get to some societies, they might relax a little bit on some things and all of that. That positive attitude, though, that is more like a general Nigerian attribute, a general Nigerian, you know, mindset or characteristics. People tend to be positive, and so people are usually quite driven. People are usually quite positive, quite futuristic, you know, and they are able to deal with adversities. I am sure that this is not exhaustive, but I feel like I've actually said a lot already. So peradventure you have actually worked with a Nigerian doctor. What was the experience like? I mean, Nigerian trained doctor, not just a Nigerian doctor, because some Nigerian doctors did not train in Nigeria. So I mean, what was the experience like? Feel free to actually share your thoughts here. Feel free to, you know, to share your opinion. What was it like? Or peradventure you're actually a Nigerian doctor, and maybe you have been able to find your way out of Nigeria, and you're now in a new system, and you know you've had reasons to actually doubt your abilities. I mean, your clinical competence or abilities, or you have had reasons to actually doubt yourself in any way. I think this video is just to remind you once again that you're actually like a very smart chap. You know, like you're intelligent. You had one of the best medical educations, and there is no reason for you to actually feel that way. So it's probably just that you know, it's the new environment, you know, a place you're not used to. And I guess that with time, as you settle down, get to understand the system more, I guess things are probably going to get better. So guys, feel free to actually share your thoughts, your comments, and till I see you guys again, take care. Bye.